Hello, everyone. I'll be taking you it from here and presenting the three key components of a strong compliance culture, what they are, why they matter, and how they can be effectively integrated into everyday operations. So, what is a compliance culture? A compliance culture ultimately goes hand in hand with getting ready for an audit from your regulator, from a key customer, or from a potential prospect or a sponsor you want to work with. So here you can see that being comfortable with or aware of your compliance demands, being able to quickly and easily demonstrate compliance, and the last one is the entire business, not just the quality manager, is ready for the audits. So, to start with, how do you feel now? It's the audit readiness, which is a spectrum which every company finds itself on, from being complete, unprepared, to a state of being totally prepared and ready and confident. So, this is where you can see the complete data that we have, not at all to somewhere, and finally completely ready. So there are three components that I'll be walking you through with for your compliance culture. So here we are looking at the three core components of a strong compliance culture. One is people, process, and data. If one or more of these elements isn't in place, a proper compliance culture can't take root. So here you can see that these components are interconnected and essential for being a culture that supports sustainable, consistent compliance. People need to be trained, engaged, and accountable. Processes must be standardized to ensure clarity and reduce variability. Data should be centralized to drive transparency and continuous improvement. Henry will take us through people and process in the next few slides, and I'll be covering the data component. So over to you, Henry.
Hi, everyone. So I'll go ahead and cover initially the process component of building a compliance culture. So the first sign of a compliance culture, where your compliance culture needs a boost, is that there's too many systems. Sumatha, next slide, please. So using too many systems such as paper, Dropbox, OneDrive, and Excel sheets, they cause headaches during audits. Basically, there are symptoms of a compliance approach that is too complicated and they have disjointed systems. There's information in too many places. So during an audit itself, you'll have a lot of issues obtaining records, pulling any documents that are needed for the auditors. And so these will slow down the audit process, and it is a symptom that you do need to streamline and be more efficient in the systems that you use. The next sign of a is your recurring findings. Sorry, so basically, there's no improvement from your previous findings. Toothless audits that don't drive change. Basically, you want to go back and look at previous audit findings, look at any CAPAs and trends that are there, and build good evidence of continuous improvement. The next one is data overload. So sometimes there's just too much data there, data that doesn't really tell a story. It doesn't illustrate an issue and just lives in a chart. And that really isn't helpful during an audit and building a compliance culture itself. You want to use quality data, which drives continuous improvement, regardless of the audit cycle. And it's a worthwhile investment in ensuring that the effectiveness of your compliance, basically, your data should have action that drives into continuous improvement. And the final one would be an unstandardized process. So this is when things are done differently at different times. So we want to basically maintain a steady process, a standardized process, where if there's an issue, something that arises that is in your QMS, And there is a procedure in place where this is addressed the same way every single time. So for a deviation spiral, this is something, if you look in the middle of the slide itself, this is your original normal. This is something that can be a compliant process, but over time, there's a deviation that occurs, which becomes something that is established by cutting corners or something that is done differently, and then it becomes crystallized in your process itself. And there are no failures which occur, and that becomes a new normal. And then there may be another occurrence of that and becomes another new normal. So over time, you have a process which initially started out as a compliant process, but is now so far away from the compliant process that it becomes uncompliant. So this is something that you want to avoid and make sure that you gather input from your subject matter experts and stakeholders to ensure that your processes make sense and aren't designed in a vacuum. So 3 top tips that we want to go through to maximize your audit process. So we want to involve key process participants in mapping your core processes from end to end, including all interdependencies and interactions as you audit. So you want to identify your stakeholders, subject matter experts, and it'll help here. Basically, if you, I'm sorry, just identify your subject matter experts as you go along. So you want to go into your chart, look at your different processes that you have, and find the subject matter experts which can fit into those processes or best know those processes. So you want to audit processes and not the function itself. You want to break away from a departmental focus and think on a business-wide level. This is another example where traceability matrices really come in handy to ensure that all the core processes have been established. You want to go into each core process example that we have here on the right of the slide, and then identify people who can actually know the process itself and go from across departments and cross-functionally in order to maintain some traceability between each process itself. And then you want to go ahead and audit across departments itself. Trace processes across department lines, see where they vary. Are these systems used to continue the same work? Do they continue the same work? Do they fundamentally change or spiral? Are the lines of communication broken at handoff points? You want to take a holistic approach and look at the process from end to end. And as handoffs happen, how is it communicated? Are there deviations that arise when these occur? And you want to use an as-is approach in order to drive internal audits. You want to assess the current state of the process. Are there any trends that have been identified through kappas or deviations? What is working well? And where can that be capitalized elsewhere? And in the to-be process, you want to see how can these processes be made compliant. Look for efficiencies in processes, steps that can be automated or streamlined with new technology or through process efficiencies. And then in your to-do, you want to prioritize that to-do list, what needs to be done, identify stakeholders, map out that timeline, and implement training. And you want to definitely track your compliance. To track your compliance, basically you're just keeping these key metrics there so that you know that there's a continuous improvement. You should focus on these core compliance KPIs. These are the typical ones: a non-conformance deviation, compliance, and deliveries. Your resolution time, how long it takes you to resolve a kappa. Internal audit findings by month. Standard clauses, your QA/RA budget, and then any closed CAPAs as well. And then the culture itself. You want to go ahead and track recurring deviations and nonconformances. You want to see how many SMEs you have per department, internal document and training engagement by month, the ratio of corrective to preventive actions, compliance gaps flagged by quality and by the wider business itself, and percent of actions where assigned resources exceeded plans. But you want to go a little bit further than that. You don't want to just look at the deviations by month that you have. Focus on your recurring deviation rate by month to gauge how well you're fixing things. Don't just record your completed CAPAs, record your ratio of corrective to preventive actions. See how reactive versus proactive you're being about compliance gaps. And don't just track new quality issues, track how many are spotted by the quality team and how many are raised by the floor staff. This extra layer behind your typical data points is where the good stuff really is. How you're fighting fires versus steering the ship, how your continuous improvement, how much continuous improvement you're making, and how strong and collaborative your culture of compliance is. So the next component would be the people and the training itself of the people. So your culture needs to be authentic. Any experienced auditor will spot an inauthentic compliance culture a mile off. You want to get the groundwork in place and a natural confidence will emerge as a result. You want to assign your subject matter experts as well. So you want to identify these processes in place, such as the example we have in quality planning. What exactly is your quality management system? Can you define it? Pinpoint 4 or 5 core business critical groups of processes with 3 to 6 sub-processes within each one. Ensure that they're all fully documented and audited. The interactions are audited and they correspond to your real life activity and your regulatory requirements. Remember, you set the QMS scope and structure that your auditor will interrogate. So this gives you your opportunity to set the tone, audit every key process, and assign a subject matter expert as you go. So your subject matter experts should demonstrate expertise and understanding, own their areas, and make the right first impression. Explain without needing a script. And you want to choose the right people to represent your compliance. You want someone who's confident and competent, who's authentic, and don't let the personality type, whether it's shy, abrasive, or talkative, inform your decision. The most knowledgeable person is always the right person to be assigned. And you want to assemble your A team. Basically, you want an authorized escort, a point of contact who escorts the auditor, a scribe, someone who takes notes, records pertinent details, a runner, they bring relevant documents to the auditor, and a subject matter expert to answer questions about specific processes.
Thank you, Henry. So I'll take over. So bring leadership into your compliance. So your business leaders play an important role in helping to foster a supportive environment that encourages constant audit readiness. As Henry mentioned, how you need to put all the specific elements in place, especially when you are establishing your quality management system. So this is where the key element would be the business leaders too. So ideally, leadership teams can help audit process buy-in across the departments so that the expectations, engagement, and urgency are level set across the organization. Organizations where leadership is involved in audits and provides the resources not just during the audit cycle, but on an ongoing basis for continuous improvement are going to have great audit readiness and great audit quality culture. So here you can see that how the various different points have been put together, which will make sure that you're always audit ready when you are establishing your QMS system and involve your leadership team.
Samantha,
The
can I
next,
just interrupt you with
ye
a question from the audience? Sorry to jump in there.
yes,
Um,
of course.
we've had a question around guidance and reference documents. So obviously the focus of today is about building a quality and compliance culture. Are there any suitable reference documents that provide a framework for this sort of thing that can help our audience today?
That's a good question, Alex. Thank you for bringing this up. So, yes, there are several valuable guidance documents and frameworks that support the development of a strong quality and compliance culture. Specifically, like if I can name it, International Society for Pharmaceutical Engineering, that is an Advancing Pharmaceutical Quality, that is APQ guide, which gives cultural excellence. And also, I would recommend implementing the relevant ISO specific quality management system, such as, like, for example, ISO 13485 for a medical device industry, or anything that would be specifically applicable for based on the business scope, and also aligning with the relevant regulatory requirements. When I say applicable regulatory requirements, which are again relevant to the business scope, like ICH and FDA, based on the company's operational scope as well as the product way they are planning to launch. So this approach provides a structured foundation for quality management, and it also ensures alignment with the industry expectations, and it also fosters a culture of continuous improvement, accountability, and regulatory compliance. I hope I answered the question.
Yes, thanks, Samantha. And while you were speaking there, we've had another one from Claire in the audience. It's just a pretty good question, actually. So you've obviously started talking about the importance of getting leadership on side, and obviously that's something that runs through a lot of the regulatory standards as well. But Claire's question is there a good way, and I suspect that you'll be answering this in the rest of the presentation today, but is there a way to drive towards a quality culture from the bottom up, or does it always need to be top-down leadership driven?
That's a good question, Claire. Thank you for bringing that point as well. So yes, it's from the both. So, but however, that when if it is from the top management, it's always that's where the quality culture can be created and established, where everybody can follow. But it should be from the both. So if it is from the bottom, definitely I would be covering on some specific tips or points that can be brought in, involving the leadership team as well as the quality team, that can create a quality culture.
Thanks, Samantha. Yeah, I think we'll be going into a bit more detail in that in the next few slides as well, Claire. So thanks for that question, and please keep your questions coming in, folks. I will interrupt the speakers when I can to get them answered for you. In the meantime, I'll let you crack on, Samantha. Over to you again.
Perfect. Thank you, Alex. So here we are on the common cultural blockers. So this is where, Claire, I was talking about, where even with the right setup, compliance culture runs into roadblocks. First, no direct line to leadership. So without a seat at the top table, compliance gets sidelined. It gets pushed for QRA representation in leadership, discussions to give it visibility and influence. Second is leadership sees compliance as a cost. So shift the mindset, show how compliance drives value, market access, smoother launches, and trust. So this can be from the bottom, escalating it to the top. So that's how that can be layered. Next, third one would be not speaking the business language. So if we talk only in technical terms, specifically from the quality team, so you may lose the people. So and train QARA to connect compliance to commercial impact and keep the jargon in check. Last, not no visibility into who is engaging. Manual systems keep you in dark. A digital quality management system can show who is trained, who is compliant, and where are the risks. Specifically, you can identify, and based on that, because all the QMS is run through based on the risk-based approach. So identifying the risks right at the time, so it's always helpful for you to fix them. Next is fixing these blockers builds a stronger, smarter, and compliance culture. So we will move on to the next slide and see that there are 5 things to demand from your leaders. To build real compliance culture, here is what we need to from the leadership too. Clear structure, everyone must know their role and compliance needs to be part of it. Smart goals, having the compliance to specifically and also having a measurable goals that align with the mission. Track performance, don't assume, monitor what's working and what's not. Next is having weekly reviews, make time to check in regularly, keep compliance active, not passive. Last is the fifth one is shared culture. Leaders must shape a consistent company wide mindset around compliance. So these 5 basics help turn good intentions into real actions. We will move on to the next slides, which we will learn from Henry. Over to you, Henry.
Thank you, Sumatha. So in part of basically changing your culture, you want to move from saying compliance is important, using lots of industry language, lots of QA and RA conclusions and action points. So this is usually what is in place when you don't have a culture of compliance. And so you want to move from this to the next slide, which is showing how compliance is important. Use normal language, add some excitement to it, and then business-wide conclusions and action points as well. So this gets everyone to buy into your compliance culture, to let everyone know that this is important and this is something that needs to be focused on. And lastly, you want to celebrate compliance. You want to consider ways to reward your teams for contributing to your compliance culture, whether that's through KPIs or some metrics that you have set. You want friendly competitions around these KPIs as well. You want to reward the site with the fewest nonconformances, or actually the department with the most flagged issues as well, because raising these issues are just as important as not having any issues. This will contribute to your continuous improvement process. And if employees suggest an improvement and it's implemented, reward them and encourage them with further suggestions as well.
Henry, can I interrupt you with another question? Is that okay?
Yes, sure.
Thank you. I think this will be a great question for you with your auditing hat on. So we've got a question from Shan, who's got an ISO 17025 lab. And he says that his internal audits have become a bit of a checkbox exercise and they want to make their processes more efficient and productive. How do they make their internal audits a bit more useful for the company rather than just doing them to check them off?
Yes, so you want to go ahead in your internal audit itself, look at all the processes that you have. Basically, if you're just going in and checking boxes that you've looked at the process itself, it's going to become repetitive, as you stated. But if you look across departments, make sure that you follow the process from beginning it to end. Let's say purchasing, for example, you purchase a product, you want to follow from incoming inspection to when that is moved from your inspection room to your manufacturing floor. And then you want to see as well that is also related to, let's say, your design control that comes in prior to your purchasing process. So you want to tie these all in to your internal audit, get a subject matter expert to explain the process from beginning to end. And when that's handed off from one SME to the next, you want to make sure that handoff is smooth as well. So when you can have one person or multiple people who are subject matter experts tell the entire story of how your product is made or a certain process in your quality management system is performed, that is basically what an auditor is looking for when they're on site.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'll let you move on.
Thank you, Henry. I will move on with the data. So to start with the data, Henry has already presented about the people and process. So data gives compliance visibility. When it's centralized, we know who is trained on and what's done and where are the risks are. So no more guesswork, just clear, trackable performance. That's how we move from reacting to leading. So this is where the bottom, where the people who are working specifically and who are aware of all these specific requirements that need to be implemented and how they are following, this data gives them a clear picture, and from there onwards, they can escalate and make sure that the quality culture is being followed, or it is consistently followed, I would say. So, if you see in the next slide, here the objective evidence is what proves compliance is happening, not just claimed. And these are some tips where we also learn from Henry how that culture need to be maintained, specifically when it comes to the documents or the implementation of the subject matter experts who can identify where all based on the data, where all the issues are happening, and from there onwards they can take necessary actions. So one of the key element here I wanted to highlight about is when you are preparing for an audit, the objective evidence is what proves compliance is happening, not just claimed. So first we need to solid systems to manage and share documents like procedures and manuals with full version control. So this is where you are building a layer for your quality culture. Second is don't skip the basics. Alcoa Plus, good documentation practice principles should be built in automatically using digital tools. Next is the objective evidence is what proves compliance is happening. So that's what you can see here. And the next is the example of how I build my audit prep. So you can take here where based on the auditor's agenda and turn around the links. So if you have an electronic quality management system where you can add all the links to these documents, procedures, and attachments, and then have them readily available. So whenever it's possible, if you find you will be able to have everything in one single place, that will help you for a ready reference, or when the auditor has access to these documents, they can easily go and verify. So next is the make compliance painless. So let's be real. No one likes long paper-based compliance tasks. So make unavoidable quality work like training quick and painless with modern tools. Connect employees to a shared source of truth to make their jobs easier. Make ease of use, accessibility, and roll out your key criteria for any system you plan to adapt. So in this way, you are actually building or trying to be when somebody has been given a new employee or a newly joined employee, when they have been given various different documents to fill in, it's very difficult for them to follow and go through. If it is electronically available, they can verify and have access to readily where they can complete their trainings and have all the records readily available. Whenever they want, they can go and review them. So we will move on to the next one where I'm talking about the training. So training is everything. First, set up a system that not only delivers training but checks if people actually understand it. Second, track completion for every key process, not just overall numbers, every critical step. And third, get feedback in real time. If the process doesn't work for people, they won't follow it. So this is where you are planning to identifying the culture of quality where training, provide them the real time. If they have some specific issues, try to resolve them. So in this way, the people are much more comfortable, confident in what they are doing and what they have learned and implementing it. So training is your best chance to catch that early. We will move on to the next one where make your compliance view simple and digestible. So this is where you will be able to see that your system allows for linking, do it, that allows auditors to follow the thread from one process to the next. Getting tagging systems in place to designate objective evidence so that the auditors, customers, and prospects will be able to view it. So it's easy for you to have everything together. Consider how to present an auditor view. That's where I have shown in the previous slide where I have put together all the documents which is readily available, a clean, representative, but minimized picture of your compliance that doesn't overwhelm the auditor as well as the person who is preparing for this audit. Last is the complexity that doesn't impress, it only confuses. So, simple visual links between compliance requirements and supporting evidence are the best to be implementing. Next is demonstrating compliance during an audit, where you can see,
Samantha, can I interrupt you again with another question?
yes,
Thank you.
Alex.
Perhaps Henry can answer this one as well, either of you. It is based on a slide that Henry discussed a few moments ago, which was around offering rewards for people suggesting process improvements, for instance, if they're implemented. And we've had a question from the audience just asking, can you share some examples of what those rewards could be?
That's a good point. Henry, would you like to take it up, or I can go ahead first. So there could be different ways of rewarding when there are improvements that are being suggested. Maybe like in the past, I have seen that you know, providing them some awards during annual end of the annual celebrations, or it could be anything to start with the little awards, or maybe offer them something which is which will encourage the other employees also to follow that specific improvement process. Henry, anything to share with your experiences during the audits?
Yes, I think that's a good reward as well. But I see that also what's appreciated are just public recognition from leadership. So if a leader, someone in leadership acknowledges the contributor, announces to the company itself, and basically um, announces to everyone what the improvement process was made and by the person itself and the outcome. It's appreciated company-wide, whether this is through cost savings, improved quality, improved efficiency on a process itself. That is something that is appreciated as well. And then you can also do annual awards. So if you track these and you give awards to, let's say, an innovation champion or a process hero itself, something like that does become appreciated as well. And so you want to tie these rewards to things that reduce risk and save the company money and improve the customer experience and the customer outcome as well.
Great answer. Thank you very much, both.
Thank you, Alex, for bringing this. So we will move on to the demonstrating compliance during an audit. So let's move on to the where all the preparation and systems are put into the test. So here you can see that set the right tone mid-audit, stable Wi-Fi, a quiet space, and some snacks go on long way. Have runners or tech ready, so you will, if there are any specific technical issues, you have someone to support the IT team or who has the technical expertise. And always have a backup plan for remote audits, like internet dropouts. Keep it smooth and stress free. So this is where you will have a good way of creating an audit environment for the auditor. A culture needs communication. So when you have got to pull in a subject matter expert, context, what is the auditor needing and why? This is very important. And here you can see that learn how to react. So if you're planning how to minimize or catch out moments, so this is very important. A culture needs communication. So you need to have answers and explanations ready for past mistakes. Auditor spotted something you haven't. Be honest and don't try to hide it. So you can share what exactly the issue is. And the next one is respond to the auditor's preferences in real time. Are they fixating on a particular product or process or department regulatory requirement? Can you anticipate where they will go next and what is in their mind? So always to start with, have uh, at least I would suggest or encourage like having 10 to 15 minutes of a talk with the auditor. And before you actually the audit starts, you can also establish a communication between the auditor so you know what the exact requirements that they will be looking for. So in this way, you can have a complete planned agenda in place. So, having this compliance culture can't be faked. So, you need to have everything stage managed. You can have the QARA manager stealing the show, same sound bites repeated, feels overly rigid and planned. If one person, usually the QARA, dominates the audit, it signals that others aren't engaged. So when the same rehearsed phrases keep popping up, it feels staged. So real compliance culture shows up when people speak naturally, understand their role, and aren't just repeating what they have been told to say. It's not about performance, it's about consistency and authenticity. So that's how you need to maintain that across not only during the audits but across the complete, starting from the initiation of the QMS establishment till where you have already well established. That is very important to have consistency and authenticity. So here you can see how authentic shared participation, natural conversation, comfortable spontaneous engagement from everyone involved. That gives a lot of confidence for the auditors too. So when I'm also as an auditor, when I perform the audits, I know one time it so happened that when I was auditing and then when I asked for certain specific linked documents or the records, um, the specific person who was handling the QRA was not letting the other person who was the actual owner of the process owner. And that created like, because the QARA couldn't explain to me what exactly the issue was, and he or she was not allowing the other person to talk or share their knowledge with me. So that's how we will end up in, the auditor will get confused, and that's how it happened. And then I couldn't go ahead with the next step. So then I had to ask for additional documents to provide to see where exactly the issue was. Next is speaking of children's stories. So you can see here that Goldilocks approach. So speaking of children's stories, respond to your auditor's type ap- appropriately with a balanced approach. Getting the Goldilocks approach right is only possible with the people work we have already discussed. So you may have to be calm and then identify what exactly the auditor is looking for and provide that information to the auditor, not more or less. So in this way, it's easy for you to handle the audits, and then the same way the auditor is also happy to see what they were looking for. Here you can see that too hot, too cold, and just right. So objective evidence does the talking, helpful extra information provided as needed. It's all about the balance. So here you can see the information underload and information overload. So in audits, it's easy to miss the mark. Either you are scrambling to find what's needed or overwhelming the auditor with too much of irrelevant information. So the goal is very clear. The right evidence at the right time for the right request, no more or less. So let's find out with Henry's experiences and what that balance looks like in real scenarios. Henry, how do you approach making sure the evidence you present is relevant, timely, and aligned with what the auditor actually needs?
Yes, thank you, Sumatha. So many times as an auditor myself, I would ask for very specific records. If this is, let's say, something that's from a management review which occurred in the prior year, we would look for specific evidence and basic actionable items that have come out of that management review itself. And while locating that specific information, we do not want to see basically and overloaded information from all the kappas or everything that has occurred. We are looking for very specific information to make sure that these things have been reviewed, have been basically addressed as well. And we want to make sure that these actions and this data that we're asking for fits into your QMS as well.
Thank you, Henry, for sharing. And a good response is your springboard to an optimal compliance culture. So, what went well, why, and what can be improved on? How will you drive those improvements? Take time to reflect after the audit, and then you can see where exactly the things have gone wrong. What were very well done. So, in this way, you can have that consistent approach to have everything well placed before the audit. Post audits tips. Remember, audits are ultimately about improving your compliance strength. Take it as a constructive criticism. Get moving on your audit findings with plans and timelines that make sense. And here with this, I will go ahead and hand over to Alex.
Thanks, Sumatha, and big thank you to you and to Henry there for walking us through those tips and insights and really interesting things which we ran through there. So, as I mentioned at the beginning of today's session, we've got about 10 minutes left today, and thank you to everyone who's joined us and is still with us. Really appreciate it and hope you're enjoying the session so far. For the final 10 minutes of today, I'd like to hand over to my colleague Colin on the Qualio product team. And for us at Qualio, the compliance challenges that we've been discussing today, it's not just something for our own quality and regulatory team to think about. As a QMS software provider, understanding where regulatory professionals are being challenged and how to alleviate that burden is a really critical part of our product development roadmap and how we continuously improve the services that we provide. So we've, not me personally, the product team, I can't take credit, have been considering these challenges and working on something very exciting to share with our current and our future customers. So over to you, Colin, for the last part of today's session.
Thank you very much, Alex, and thanks, Sumatha and Henry, for that great presentation. So my name is Colin Feely. I'm a product manager at Qualio, and I'm delighted to chat to you today about our latest solution in the compliance and regulatory space. And just before I get stuck into it, just revisiting the culture of compliance and what we touched on at the beginning of today's session. What does the compliance culture really look like for your business? There was 3 key points. Being comfortable and aware of your compliance demands. The entire business, not just quality, is ready for audits and compliance. And being able to quickly and easily demonstrate compliance. So those 3 points, they're kind of something that kept front and center of our minds when we were looking at the kind of next evolution of our QMS software and going into the compliance space. And I'll look to demonstrate how our solution helps support those 3 points as we go through the presentation. So moving on, Samantha, please. So why are we looking at solutions in this space? Well, the world has changed. There's been an acceleration in innovation and speed to market in life sciences over recent years as more and more startups and scale-ups emerge, interacting and working together across the entire product development lifecycle. So products are ready to go to market faster than ever before as new technologies and processes emerge and are applied. So for example, in pharmaceuticals, preclinical studies can be conducted 25 to 50% faster than a few years ago using AI and machine learning. And you see that in spaces like looking at molecules and compounds and kind of eliminating certain ones, use AI to eliminate them, and then they can focus on the research on ones that have a potential higher success rate, reducing the overall time in research. So new approaches as well to outsourcing and collaboration are creating a decentralized life sciences world where products can be developed in record time. But this innovation and acceleration of progress is being held back by compliance and waiting for these compliance milestones to be met. So moving on, Samantha, please. So what's happening, or why is compliance kind of slowing things down? And what we see in many cases is kind of overly manual, distributed across multiple systems, like Henry talked about a while ago, having lots of different systems and spreadsheets, having very reactive approaches to their compliance and regulatory processes. And it's very hard to keep all these balls juggling simultaneously while you're trying to develop new products and launch to new markets. So the compliance view is kind of oscillating, it's non-constant. As you can see here, this kind of on, off, or up and down. We know where we are in terms of compliance, then we don't know where we are in terms of compliance. And this kind of this on-off compliance is something that the PDA and FDA drew lots of attention to at their joint regulatory compliance conference last year. And companies could be compliant one year, and the next year they slip, and there's non-conformances found, and they're forced into kind of panic stations and being reactive. So what we're kind of seeing from our customers is that, like, within the compliance space, speed to market can be slowed as the time taken to understand regulations for new markets, or just even assessing the requirements for multiple markets. Where should we enter next? As you try to scale up and launch more products or enter new markets, you have to add more people to your compliance and regulatory team just to take on the burden of that work. And there is a cost to all of the compliance activities in terms of audits and submissions, but also taking people away from product development and innovation to do the compliance activities around audits and submissions. There's a cost to product development in that space. And then in terms of business continuity, if you have a lot of manual processes and there's teams change, or people move around, that can slow you down as people have to get back up to speed in terms of where you were, how you do certain things in compliance and regulatory. And all this leads to kind of poor visibility of risk in terms of knowing where you are, and issues can go unnoticed and become kind of critical problems. So how can this be fixed? We're looking to help you transition into a more modern way of managing compliance, harnessing AI to drive automation and real-time compliance intelligence, and building a compliance culture across your organization. So if you move on, Sumatha, so you can see this here. The intention here is that you've got a much more consistent view of your compliance, and it's moving away from these manual approaches to and point-in-time compliance to a continuous, constant, system-driven, company-wide compliance that is driven by AI. So if we move on, and this is where our new product comes in, and I'm excited to share with you, and I'm going to step through some of the key components of it now. So thank you, jumping on again. So the first area that I'll touch on is knowing your requirements. And this comes back to the first point the guys had earlier about being comfortable and aware with your compliance demands. So with our product, what we have is, within it, we have compliance frameworks aligned to standards like ISO 9001, 13485, MDSAP, and many, many more. We're looking to have 30 to 50, a library of 30 to 50 frameworks available within the product. And this outlines all of the requirements to those given standards. But with that, we also have controls mapped to those requirements. Now, what is a control? A control is a recommendation for how you meet a requirement. And what you can then do is you can connect your actual documentation to those controls. So the easiest way to give it is an example. Say, for example, within 9001, there is requirements around change management, which would result in, a CAPA process. That would be the control, is a CAPA process. And what you can do is you can connect your policies, procedures, and work instructions to the control. And you can also connect your objective evidence to the control as well, such that everything is organized in the control, and then that is mapped to requirements. So you can easily link your processes, your policies, procedures, work instructions, and objective evidence back to the requirements, and you can reuse that control across multiple frameworks, but we give you that out of the box. And then we will also look at managing updates to standards and requirements as they happen within the industry and give you notification of them. So what this can do is help you increase speed to market because you clearly know what's required. It will help you with scalability because you don't need more and more people to understand this. You can simply take on new frameworks, and it's a structured way to organize information that allows you to easily demonstrate compliance for internal audits or other audits. So jumping on, Sumatha, please. And then within that as well, you could look at it as could be quite a bit of work in setting up something like this, but we're using AI to scan your QMS and connect those policies, procedures, and work instructions to your controls out of the box. And we're having great success with that. So for your Kappa control, it would automatically scan your QMS and find those policies, procedures, and work instructions and assign them to the control for you without you having to do anything. And it will be indicated as done by AI, so you can review it. We also have the ability to automate the collation of objective evidence so that as CAPAs are created or closed, they flow in against the control and they can be reviewed in that space and they can be marked then to be used in an audit or not, depending on how you want to do it. But all of that information can be automatically collated against the control. And if you're using many systems, you can integrate those systems into Qualio, such that you have information flowing in, and then again, they can be organized into control. So everything is here ready to demonstrate how you're meeting a given requirement. Thank you. Moving on. And then you can't automate everything. We do know that. And as we've discussed a number of times, compliance is the responsibility of everyone in the organization. So we have a number of collaboration capabilities that support that. Controls themselves kind of owners, and we talked about one of the types of controls is processes. We've talked about that quite a bit. The management review process might be owned by a particular person. You can assign that control to that person, and it's their responsibility to make sure that everything on that control is up to date and up to speed, that the policies and procedures are there, that they're in a good place, that the objective evidence is there, and they can assign tasks out to SMEs and other people within their teams, again, to work and make sure that everything from the compliance perspective of that given control is set up and ready with notifications, etc., so that everyone knows what's going on. So reducing the overall cost and giving you a central place to manage and work with across your business in terms of being compliant and compliant ready. And moving on to the last one in the product, and then looking at really the continuous compliance. So we're looking at using AI-powered solutions to support continuous compliance, such that you're in a place to quickly and easily demonstrate compliance. And what we're looking at doing here is anytime, once you assign your policies, procedures, and work instructions, we will use AI to assess them against the requirements they're mapped to and highlight any gaps or recommendations for you to focus on. If someone is making a change to a policy, procedure, or work instruction, again, we will run AI to assess that change to see if there's any potential compliance implications so you know where to focus your time. As objective evidence is created, we will assess the objective evidence against your policies, procedures, and work instructions, and again, highlight any gaps so that you know where to focus your time. And you can do internal audits that are focused on key areas where things have been found or warnings or gaps have been highlighted for you, so you know where to focus your attention. And you can do this on a continuous basis. You can do this week in, week out, month in, month out, rather than on a periodic basis. So this helps you give you that real-time visibility, significantly reducing risk and giving you kind of visibility up and down the organization of where you are. So thank you, Sumatha. Moving on to the next one. So I've demonstrated how our new compliance, that kind of covers the overview of our new compliance intelligence solution. So how that is a centralized tool that can support and enable a compliance culture so that you can, be aware of your compliance demands, helping you increase speed and scalability as you launch to new markets, reducing cost of compliance through automation, sharing responsibility, building collaboration and business continuity, and visibility to demonstrate compliance through a centralized location for your compliance information with a continuous view of progress and reducing risk. And this is just the start of a new exciting journey for Qualio. Our EQMS is the leftmost area there, and we're expanding out into our compliance intelligence area and moving into product lifecycle end to end from design through post-market surveillance and into our trusted ecosystem. And then jumping on to the last slide. Thank you. So if you're looking to strengthen your culture of compliance, to move from reactive to continuous AI-powered compliance, from siloed to shared, just take 10 seconds to complete this form by following the URL or the QR code, and we'll be in touch with more information when we launch. 1 minute is fair. I think that my timing was outstanding.
Absolutely perfect timing. That's what we love right
Thank you,
now.
Alex.
High quality presentation is what we love. So thank you, Colin, and thank you to Sumatha and Henry for a fascinating presentation today. Hope you folks have all enjoyed it. And if you do want to see what's coming in our webinar calendar in the next few weeks, we'd encourage you to visit the Qualio website and complete the form on this slide here if you want to learn more about our compliance AI software. We're really excited about that one. I'll now pass back to Robin to close things off for today. Thank you very much, everybody.